Identifying
The king of cakes. Chopper for the win.
G'day guys, welcome back to Cakes by Chopper. Today I have made Gekko from PJ Masks. I've previously made Catboy, and Jack, I'm sorry that it's not Owlette, but she's coming soon. If you have any PJ Masks fans in your family and you want to learn how to make this cake, then stick around and I'll show you how to make it. Okay, before you get started, what you want to do is prepare your cake board. This is what I did earlier. Just cover it with some fondant. You can use a bit of water to lay that down, and you just trim off the edge as you've seen in previous videos. If you haven't, why not go check them out? But do that, pop it aside, and then we can get started on the decorating. Normally we'd start by leveling off your cake, but what I'm going to do today is cut the template in half, because you've got two, and you're going to use that as a rough guide. We're only going to level half of our cake today because I want to use that raise in the middle so we don't have to do as much carving later on. It's just a little preemptive move to make it easier. We're going to level this side off because this is the most uneven. After you've cut out your first template, you see I always do two because the first one I want to use on the cake, and if any cake sticks to it, then you can just discard it and you've got a nice clean one for your fondant because you don't want the cake and the fondant to mix just yet. So what you're going to do is place that on top, knife vertical as always. Now with your second layer of cake, you're going to place your template on top, same process, knife vertical, all the way around. Then you're going to place that on top and see if you've got the right height. And I'm pretty sure we do. I'm going to take the edge off. One side you're going to have to cut a little bit more off because it's obviously the middle of the cake and you want to bring it down to that same level. So I've only done a little bit on this side, yet a lot on the other side. If you think of it as a nice ovally egg shape, but not too pointy, not too narrow at the top, you're just going to gently carve that away in little bits. Now using the template once again, I'm going to place that on top, and I'm going to fold back to where his eyes are and just run my knife across. That's going to give me a nice measurement line. Back again to where his eyes are, run the knife across. And then I can use the lines underneath to point out. That just gives me an idea of where that middle section is between his eyes. If you feel more comfortable, you can use the template to cut the eye out and then trim it. I'm just doing it by hand because we're going to use buttercream over the top, so you really lose a lot of that definition, so it's not really a necessity right now. Now that I've looked back over, I think the sides are a little too high, so I'm just rounding them off a little bit more. If you happen to make a mistake, don't fret. You can always correct this with the buttercream. Once you're happy with the general shape of his head, you can put that aside, grab your cake board, use a little bit of the buttercream. This just secures the cake so when you're working on it, it's not going to slide around. You're going to place him on your cake board and you want to put him closer to the bottom, using his eyes as a guide. You're going to be putting closer to the bottom because you've got little pieces that go on the top. So you want to bring it closer to the bottom, but remember to leave at least 2 finger spaces for your fondant and your buttercream. And then you can start filling your cake. Shout out to my boy Alonzo, whose merch I'm wearing. You might have seen him on Facebook. There's a link below. Check out his merch store. Check out his videos. He's hilarious. I've been watching him so many years. But if you want a good laugh, go and check him out. Okay, once I've done filling, you can see I've given it quite a generous amount and I've gone a little bit over the edge. So this is going to help us when we place on the top, and I won't have to go and fill in the sides. It makes a little bit less work. I always describe the crumb coat as buttering bread because you're sort of gently pushing it in and sealing the cake off. You're not actually giving it a coating or a final layer, so it doesn't have to be neat. You just push gently, smooth it off, and it helps keep your cake fresh. So the sooner you do this, the better your cake's going to taste. Once I'm happy with the crumb coat, you can see I've filled his eyes in. This is where you want to clean off your spatula, go through and just gently dip them out because we carved them for a reason. The smoother you get your crumb coat around this time, it'll be a lot easier with the fondant. And also, if you're not very confident with fondant and you worry about getting a nice smooth finish, you can always add a little bit more buttercream, do a double crumb coat or a second coat, and then when the fondant goes on, you're finding less ripples and indentations from the cake because you've got a cushioning layer between the cake and the fondant. So it's a little trick to get your cakes to look a little smoother. So you want to lay down some cornstarch, take your green fondant, place it in the middle, then you're going to gently roll it out, but keep it moving because you don't want it to stick to the bench. The cornstarch will only do so much. If you leave it, it will actually stick and make it impossible to peel up. Once you've rolled it out to your desired thickness, you can put it straight on and then work in his detailing. But I'm going to do a cheats method. I really want to try using this cooling rack. It's got a nice little diamond pattern. I'm going to place it there and give it quite a firm push and smooth my hand down, but not too hard where I'm scratching the fondant through. Making sure I've got it in every direction. Then I'm going to lift, place it over the top, and then gently let that fall. Try not to push too much so you don't lose that pattern. The idea of that print though is to give you the main pattern. Now taking your little detailing tool, if you find you have rubbed out the lines, you can just go through and put them back in. And it's going to make your work a lot neater than is if you did them by hand, because you've got this guide there almost. Once you're happy with that, you can go through and trim off the bottom, cut away all your excess. As always, I like to leave a little bit more than what's there, what should be there I should say, and then I can just tuck that under. And I feel it just gives a nicer look at the bottom. Okay, so once you're happy with the head and the final little texture of his mask, I guess, what you're gonna do is cut out the mouth part of the template. You're gonna place that on, just as a rough guide, just under there, and gently mark out where you're going to put the face, because we're going to cut it out a little bit bigger than it actually is, but just mark your fondant where it's going to go. Now this is a tricky bit. Using something thin and sharp, you're actually going to cut that out. Take your time with it, because you don't want to pull the fondant. You're going to sort of saw it. If you're too nervous to do this part, you can actually just place it on top and you'll get a little bit different of a result, but it'll still look fine. So peeling back that. Now, using our flesh tone fondant, which I got this from mixing a little bit of golden yellow and the deep pink, but I only used like the smallest bits and just kept adding a little bit in. I put the pink in so it went sort of like a rose pink, and then added the yellow till I got the desired skin tone. You can just flatten this out with your hand, and you need it quite thick because you want it to protrude over the top. Then cut out the shape. This part's all very loosely based. You don't need to be too precise, because what we're going to do is use our hand, round that out so we get that real cartoony, almost plasticine-like. Then you're going to place that in, and then gently smooth that around, using your tool to keep the edges nice and neat. But you are actually going to push it in and let it bubble over just a little bit. because you want it to sort of look like his mouth is coming out of the mask. Make a nice neat little oval, so you don't want to make any lines or any marks in the side. Place that on. See, I would even say that's a little too big, but I'm going to bend that down and go in there. Now for his mouth, you can see it's just a little line. Kept this one super simple. Using a carving tool, you're going to put it there and follow what it does. So a little bend and then a hook around. This part's not a necessity, but if you want to take your cake to the next level, grab a fluffy brush, some shimmer powder, and I'm going to give him a glossy coat, which is going to make him look shiny and reflective. I don't even know why I said a glossy coat. It's not even that. It just gives him a shimmer, which would make sense because it's a shimmer dust. Now the cool thing about the shimmer dusts is you can mix the colors. I'm going to use a little bit of black and give him some shadowing. So I've mixed that in with the green. And you're just going to sort of press that on, and then I'm going to go around the base and sort of just work that in to give him a little bit of shadow. So taking your light green fondant now, you're going to roll it quite thick because we're going to do your little shark fins. Now just loosely cut them out. You could even shape them with your hands. You don't necessarily need to cut them. I just find it easier to get the right shape. Once you've got one, mold it with your fingers, paying close attention to the shape because you want it to curve. We're going to get a wet brush, apply a little bit of water to the underside, and then put that from the middle of the forehead, place it on. So once your first one's on, you can make your second one. I've put on the template that you need 3, but it depends on how high your cake is. Just do it to what fits and what looks good. That's a little too tall, because as it goes back, I'm going to just place it right behind, wet the brush, use the wet brush, placing it on, pushing it until it's uniform. Then I'm just going to use my finger to neaten it up. Take the amount you want for both eyes, roll it into a ball, then you're just going to cut it in half. Then you have the same amount and your eyes won't be uneven. Now I'm going to just use, let me move this out of the way. I'm going to use the template to get the rough shape. Once you've put that in that little ridge, you can actually use your tools to reshape. Again, same process. Just going to flatten it out a bit. Use the tool to get the shape I need. To make his eyes, we're going to use a little bit of green fondant and roll that out quite thin. To make it very easy on yourself, you can use a little cutter, or I have a piping nozzle that is the perfect size. It goes to the outside and then the inside. So I'm going to cut out 2. And if you have any little dry pieces on the edge, you can just brush them away and it makes it really neat. To make this look a little bit cuter, I'm going to use a little bit of that dark petal dust to go around the edge. Just lightly brush it around the perimeter. Same on this side. Same again with some black. You're going to take a small piece, roll that out quite thin, and we're going to use the cutter again. Actually, make sure it cuts through clean. Do a couple just in case. Once you've cut them out, put a small dab of water in the middle, and you can use your tool to pick them up, place them on, try and get them in the center. Eyeball placement is very important, so I can't show you this onto the camera because I need him square onto me. So I'm going to pick that up and put that there so it looks, you can twist it around to see where it is going to look the best for you. Now taking the very smallest tiny little dots of white, you're going to roll them around and then place them in the top corners of the black parts of his eye. The last step is the little piece of green that you've rolled out. You're going to cut a line along and then another one, and then gently angle one of those down. Once you've cut out the shape of the eyebrow, you're going to put a little bit of water where you want it to go. Gently place it on. Now this eyebrow is a little higher, so we'll go that way. To finish him off, take your cake steamer, give him a once over, just to take that powdery look off him, and you're done. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do really appreciate it, and stay tuned for more content. It's coming at you real soon. Please check out my buddy Alonzo Larone. He's hilariously funny. You've probably seen him on Facebook, and if you want to get some of his merch too, there's a link in the description. Thanks guys, love you heaps, and I'll see you soon.